I'm Mrs. Natalie Watson, age 29, residing in a cozy apartment with my husband. Our 3-year marriage has generally been harmonious, though lately discontent has crept into my heart. It's not solely directed at my husband but also extends to his parents. The bond between my husband and his parents is strong, evidenced by our weekly visits to their home. Initially, I admired his filial devotion. However, during these visits, a recurring theme emerges: my in-laws' persistent inquiry. Natalie, when will you leave your job? A woman's place is in the home. Over time, my aversion to visiting their home deepened. I find fulfillment in my current job and wish to continue working for as long as possible, a sentiment I expressed to my husband even before we tied the knot. Yet when his parents berate me, my husband remains indifferent, avoiding eye contact as if the matter is inconsequential to him. The thought of going to my in-laws' place fills me with dread, prompting me to sometimes suggest to my husband, "Why did you go alone?" Yet he insists, "My parents want to see you too," forcing me into accompanying him. Eventually, I surrendered to his persistence, resigning myself to the routine. Expressing my sentiments directly to his parents seemed daunting, fearing it might wound my husband's sentiments. Hence I found myself unable to articulate these thoughts to them, for fear of causing any distress to him. Instead, I resorted to smiling and deflecting their remarks whenever they arose. Though my husband's apathy troubled me, the inquiries from his parents about our childlessness irked me the most. While I cherish the idea of parenthood and the joy children bring, conceiving isn't a matter one can simply will into existence. It's a delicate process, not subject to mere desire. Initially, the notion of having a child solely to appease his parents baffled me. Frankly, I yearned for them to respect my boundaries and cease their incessant prodding. I confided in my husband about my feelings regarding this matter. His response was dismissive, assuring me, "Don't fret, you're just overthinking it," yet took no action. As my vexation mounted, fueled by both my husband's lack of support and my solitary struggle, a breaking point emerged when my mother-in-law uttered words that cut deep. With a callousness I couldn't fathom, she questioned, "Are you unable to conceive, given that you've yet to bear a child?" Adding to the distress, my father-in-law regarded me with suspicion, accusing, "Did you conceal your infertility and marry our son?" The accusation was a final straw. While I had endured their scrutiny with a smile, until then, I found my tolerance wearing thin. Confronting them, I declared, "I'm willing to pursue infertility treatment. In return, can you refrain from revisiting this topic?" Surprised by my own assertiveness, I realized the weight of my pent-up frustration. Unexpectedly, my previously silent husband interjected, his voice resolute. "I don't believe fertility treatments are necessary. We're still young, and there's no rush to start a family. Besides, such treatments entail financial strain. I value our time together as a couple," he affirmed to his parents. At that moment, I interpreted my husband's words to align with my own desires, convincing myself that his consideration was genuine. One weekday, I took a day off from work and made my way to the gynecologist's office. Although the pressure from my in-laws about starting a family had lessened, I wanted certainty about my fertility status. Initially, I contemplated discussing the matter with my husband. However, his mood soared whenever the topic of infertility treatments arose, prompting me to handle the examination alone. The appointment concluded sooner than anticipated, and I secured a follow-up appointment for the results a week later. As I exited the office, my gaze met that of a pregnant woman seated in the waiting room. Familiar face halted me in my tracks. Sensing my recognition, she approached me. "Are you Natalie?" she inquired. Confirming our identities, we exchanged nods, realizing we were former classmates from elementary and middle school. Clara's swollen belly indicated she was nearing her due date. Having just completed her routine checkup, I'd offered to accompany her home. To my surprise, Clara lived in close proximity to my own residence. What astonished me even more was discovering that her husband and mine were colleagues at the same company. As we caught up on our lives and reminisced about our school days, my attention naturally gravitated towards Clara's pronounced belly. Sensing my curiosity, she extended an invitation. "Would you like to feel?" Hesitant, I inquired, "Is that all right?" With a warm smile, she reassured, "Of course." Gently, I placed my hand on Clara's abdomen. In my recollection, Claire boasted a slender figure with a trim waist, but now her body had blossomed with the presence of new life. A sense of awe washed over me as I realized there truly was a baby growing within her. As I kept my hand on her belly, I felt a faint fluttering beneath my fingertips. Startled, I glanced up at Claire. "Did you feel that?" I asked. "Yes, it's been moving a lot lately," she confirmed, her expression radiant with maternal joy. In that moment, Claire exuded the aura of a contented mother-to-be. Before I could stop myself, the words slipped out, "I'm envious." Instantly, I regretted my candidness, averting my gaze from Claire. Sensing my discomfort, Claire, attuned to others' emotions, gently probed, "If I'm mistaken, I apologize, but is something troubling you?" Reluctant at first, I hesitated to divulge my troubles. However, sensing Claire's sincerity, I realized I couldn't mask my feelings from her perceptive eyes. Thus, I opened up about the challenges I faced with my in-laws and the longing for children. Once I began sharing, the floodgates opened, and I poured out everything, even detailing the fertility tests I underwent earlier that day at the clinic. As I poured out my thoughts to Claire, a strange sense of relief mingled with lingering anxiety. Despite initial reservations, I found solace in confiding in her, perhaps driven by an urgent need to unburden myself after years of pent-up frustrations. Throughout my narrative, Claire simply nodded, offering a quiet, attentive presence. Upon concluding my tale, Claire remarked, "You've shouldered this burden for so long. Your endurance is remarkable. If it were me, I might have severed ties with my in-laws." Reflecting on her words, I admitted, "I hadn't realized the extent of my stress until now. Sharing with you has brought some relief, Claire, and knowing my husband supports me is a small comfort." Despite my attempt at levity, Claire's demeanor remained somber. I was taken aback by Claire's expression, unsure of the reason behind her solemn demeanor. Calling out her name, I urged her to share her thoughts. With evident reluctance, she finally spoke, her words laced with hesitation. "It's regarding your husband. Perhaps, for now, it's best not to disclose the details of the test," she murmured. Confusion clouded my thoughts as I blinked in disbelief at Claire's unexpected caution. I pressed her for an explanation, prompting her to reveal something utterly astonishing. Struggling to comprehend Claire's revelation, I made my way home with faltering steps. Seated on the sofa, I dwelled on her words, grappling with disbelief and uncertainty. While part of me resisted accepting the truth, Claire's sincerity left little room for doubt. Moreover, recent doubts about my husband's behavior intensified my turmoil. If Claire's claim held any truth, I could have fathomed forgiving him. Determined to uncover the truth, I seized the opportunity during a visit to my in-laws. Amidst tea and snacks, my mother-in-law broached the familiar topic of my job. Unlike before, this time, my response harbored a newfound resolve. "I suppose I'll consider quitting when we have a child," I responded. My mother-in-law blinked in surprise, remarking, "So, you've decided to start a family." Excitement lit up my father-in-law's face as he eagerly exclaimed, "Ah, will I finally get to hold a grandchild?" However, my husband, after a brief glance at my expression, adopted a restrained demeanor, cautioning, "Well, parenthood is a blessing, but timing is uncertain." As anticipated, my husband's reaction followed the script I had predicted. Meeting his gaze, I disclosed, "Actually, I had a recent appointment with the gynecologist, presenting him with the results of my infertility test. The report indicates no issues," I informed him preemptively. "I'm beginning to feel the desire for a child as well. Will you support me for the sake of your parents?" My husband's gaze flickered between the test results and my face, his complexion flushing crimson as he erupted, "I refuse to undergo any infertility treatments. I won't even get tested." His sudden outburst left his parents stunned, but I couldn't suppress my disappointment, realizing Claire's words were indeed true. "By the way, you know Mr. Howard?" I inquired, noting my husband's surprised expression. With a sense of foreboding, I revealed what I had learned, awaiting his reaction. "His wife happens to be a friend of mine. Apparently, you've been making disparaging remarks at work, claiming my wife is defective, unable to conceive due to infertility. She's abandoned her femininity to focus solely on work, and I'm the pitiful one for marrying her." As I leveled him with a gaze icy with disappointment, my husband's lips quivered, his demeanor defensive. "And what if it is true?" he retorted, his tone laced with defiance. "Who else would want someone like you?" His words, filled with scorn, struck me like a blow, causing the warmth I once felt for him to dwindle. Maintaining my composure, I gestured towards the test results lying on the table. I've just proven there's no issue on my end, haven't I? I remarked calmly. Despite his silence, I couldn't shake off a nagging suspicion that had lingered in the recesses of my mind. Could it be that the problem lies with you? I ventured, voicing the troubling thought that had plagued me. Is that why you vehemently refused infertility treatments and testing? At that moment, my previously silent mother-in-law interjected sharply. That's impossible. There's no way my son could have any issues. If there's a problem, it must be with you, she asserted vehemently, her face flushing with indignation. In a sudden burst of anger, she seized the test results from the table and declared, "These must be fabricated," before tearing them to shreds. My husband's initial surprise quickly gave way to alignment with his mother's sentiments. "Yeah, she's right. There's no way it could have any issues," he affirmed, joining in the accusatory chorus. With their combined blame raining down on me, I realized the futility of continuing the discussion. In a decisive move, I slammed the prepared divorce papers onto the table, signifying the end of our feudal union. "Then please proceed with the divorce, and perhaps you'll find a far superior wife than myself," I declared calmly, my resolve unwavering. In response, my husband retorted, "Yeah, that's right. I'll find someone much better than you," his words dripping with anger as they hastily filled out the divorce papers. Surprisingly, his parents offered no objection to his decision. As I watched dispassionately while the divorce papers were completed, a sense of liberation washed over me, realizing I was severing ties with the trio before me. Once the last signature was affixed, I swiftly snatched the papers, bidding a curt goodbye before swiftly departing from my in-laws' home. Though I thought I heard a voice calling after me, it was likely just my imagination. I swiftly made my way to City Hall and promptly filed the divorce papers. Within a matter of days, I efficiently relocated from the apartment we once shared to my company's dormitory, having long prepared for this inevitable step. Given that I was the sole lessee of the apartment, the transition proceeded without a hitch. As for my ex-husband's belongings, I packed them into cardboard boxes and arranged for them to be delivered to his parents' residence with payment upon receipt. Settling into my new life at the company dormitory, I was taken aback when I received a call from my ex-husband. Curious as to his intentions, I answered the phone, only to be met with a barrage of accusations. "Why did you file for divorce? And why did you vacate the apartment?" he demanded angrily. Perplexed by his sudden outcry, I responded calmly, "Let's not play games. You agreed to the divorce and signed the papers, didn't you? As for the apartment, I've moved out because it's no longer necessary, considering our divorce and my sole responsibility for the lease." Despite my attempts to reason with him, my ex-husband remained obstinate. "Revoke the divorce. Let's start anew with marriage papers. Where are you staying now? Let's reunite," he persisted, spouting increasingly ludicrous proposals. Exasperated, I reached my limit and declared, "Enough. I'm ending this call. Do not contact me again." Attempting to terminate the conversation, I prepared to disconnect, only to be met with a threat from my ex. "If you won't disclose your location, I'll visit your workplace," he warned ominously. At wit's end, I sternly retorted, "Any disruptions you cause will only reflect poorly on you," before abruptly ending the call. Despite my hopes that he wouldn't resort to drastic measures, I took precautions and confided in my boss about my ex-husband. Neither my boss nor I anticipated any trouble, but to our dismay, he caused a disturbance at the company. I was mortified to learn from the security guard that he had caused a scene in the lobby, necessitating police intervention. Filled with shame and regret, I found solace in the empathy of my coworkers, who reassured me that ending the relationship was the right choice. Later, I was informed by Claire's husband that my ex-husband had attempted to shift blame onto me when news of the police incident reached his workplace. Thankfully, Claire's husband set the record straight, exposing the falsehoods my ex-husband had been spreading about me. It appears he struggled to continue working at the company and ultimately resigned. Chances are, my now unemployed ex-husband has returned to his parents' home, seeking solace from them. Though it might evoke some pity, supporting a jobless and divorced son could prove challenging for them. Nevertheless, his situation no longer concerns me, as he's become a stranger. Since then, I've enjoyed a life free from unnecessary stress, dedicating my days to work. With more time and resources at my disposal, I occasionally visit Claire to check on her and make plans to spoil her baby. She often finds my gestures amusing, shaking her head at my antics. As for remarriage, it's not something I can consider at the moment. However, I hold on to the hope that one day I'll have the opportunity to build a happy family of my own.